Superhero games. Every so often nowadays, we get a great one. You know, Batman Arkham, Spider-Man, hey, even Infamous. But there was a time not too long ago, like the PS3, 360 era and earlier, where it wasn't as easy to find a good superhero game. Sure, we had some decent Spider-Man games here and there, but we were plagued with many just either straight up bad superhero games like Superman 64 or Aquaman, or just phoned in movie tie-in games like the Iron Man game. There was one game though where, at the time, it was really underrated. Sure, now it's known as a big surprise awesome game, but at the time, I had to beg my friends to give this one a chance. This game was X-Men Origins Wolverine, the game based on the movie of the same name. Let's talk about why this game was surprisingly awesome. It's a miracle that this game turned out great. It had so many things going against it. I mean, think about it. It's a superhero game where, at the time, there weren't a ton of great ones, and this one was also based on a movie. Movie tie-in games have a track record also of typically not being that great. So many games pushed out the door to capitalize on and make a quick buck off of a movie's success. Not only that though, this game was based on like a particularly bad superhero movie. X-Men Origins Wolverine was pretty bad, especially for longtime fans of the character from the comics and the animated series like myself. Like how do you screw up Wolverine? Forget that they butchered the first on-screen Gambit, Deadpool, and so many others. How do you put Wolverine in a mediocre action movie that softens his origin, makes one of his rivals just seem kind of annoying, and also have like incredibly bad special effects? Do you remember the CGI claws in the bathroom? Yeah, there's a reason why we don't talk about this X-Men movie anymore, really. So X-Men Origins Wolverine had everything bad going for it, but the developers, Raven Software, took what they were given and really ran with it and pretty much knocked it out of the park. It was released for all the major platforms in 2009, but we're specifically talking about the PC, PS3, Xbox 360 uncaged version. These versions specifically were received fairly well, with it mostly being considered like a 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 type of game. And again, that was pretty great considering the landscape of similar games at the time. It is absolutely just like a guilty pleasure game. You know, it's not crazy. It's a little repetitive, not the best boss battles, and some rough edges here and there, but the combat is fun and satisfying because it's like the ultimate Wolverine simulator. It's a fairly straightforward hack and slash adventure with light attacks, heavy attacks, grabs, and cool branching things from there, and a classic Wolverine style lunge. Now this lunge was an awesome feeling move because you could quickly get to another enemy just by leaping through the air Wolverine style with your arms out, and it was satisfying to execute just as much as it looked really cool. Wolverine is growling and screaming and yelling as you jump around the map, slicing dudes, and sometimes when he would take a big hit, he would fly backwards and catch himself with his claw in the ground and slide, and it was sick. And of course, you're Wolverine, so you're also building up this rage meter that lets you do cool attacks like, you know, his arms out spinny move. You can also go full-on berserker mode for full power here. Combat is satisfying because it's so brutal. Like, Wolverine is aggressive. He grabs dudes and lifts them in the air and stabs them in the guts a million times. He's slicing people's legs off. He's popping heads like they're balloons. Blood is everywhere. It even gets on the screen with one of those like camera effects. It's all insane. Now, are the comic book pages of X-Men dripping with blood? Not exactly always, but this is really cool, and fans have always wanted to see what a guy with knives coming out of his hands can really do. Remember when Wolverine stabbed that guy up against the fridge in X-Men 2? Dude, I felt that. Anyway, there are like little mini cutscene QTEs, QuickTime events, where you do some wild stuff like kill a helicopter. It's just a trip, man. Like it's on like high octane the entire time. Also, you can see how you're doing visually by looking at Wolverine himself. The more damage he takes on, the more damage he actually visibly takes on, like Wolverine. He can be riddled with bullet holes and have chunks of him blown off before he starts regenerating, you can actually get a bit of a glimpse of the adamantium grafted onto his bones. It's that cool. You can see his ribs, you can see, it's nuts. Seriously, like it's the only game where you want to take a bunch of damage and then stop and look at it. It makes the hacking and slashing that much cooler. Now, combat is simple, like I said, it is repetitive by the end, but it's still pretty satisfying because the game isn't super long, so it doesn't really overstay its welcome anyway. It's got a simple level up and upgrade system, and every level and every kind of scenario is pretty varied, so it all works. And the story, man, it's loosely based on the terrible movie, but then Raven Software just kind of did whatever they wanted here. There are story beats related to the movie, but then you're also doing regular old Wolverine stuff, like fighting Sentinels, because why not? It goes way more comic booky here. Raven Software was allowed to use other influences, and they clearly did. There are some really cool battles here, and all of it is connected with a couple of high-quality pre-rendered cinematic cutscenes done by Blur Studio, the VFX team that is known for cinematic trailers and opening credits effects in certain movies and games. And really what you get is like a way more interesting, if messy, dumb tale featuring these cool, detailed moments and a whole thing around Wolverine in the future. This game opens with a banger scene of Wolverine with long hair running around a post-apocalyptic landscape, just slaughtering soldiers in the most like R-rated fashion. That is like one of those moments that like with the game after you play it, you're gonna go back later and like rewatch scenes and battles on YouTube. It's just that cool. So X-Men Origins Wolverine, the game actually falls in a weird place of other kind of strange X-Men license type games. It's right up there with X2 Wolverine's Revenge, which is another licensed game based on a movie, based on the original X2 specifically, that ended up being really awesome and could have been garbage. In that one, Wolverine was voiced by Mark Hamill. I don't know, that's just really worth highlighting. Maybe we'll make a video on that one. It's just funny, right? Not to get like weird old man, but like we don't get games like this anymore. Even though we had some flops, like I said at the start of the video, we had games that take the comic license and run with it and do really silly, crazy stuff. You know, those like mid-2000s games like The Punisher on PlayStation 2 and Xbox, or Ultimate Alliance, or Hulk Ultimate Destruction, or even The Darkness. It felt like X-Men Origins Wolverine was one of the last of these from that era. Those wild and crazy and frankly messy times. Raven Software is still doing their thing today, but I don't think they'll ever make a game again like this one, like X-Men Origins Wolverine. And frankly, I'm really curious to see what Insomniac's Wolverine game that is announced, that we don't know too much about, how that's gonna pan out. How violent is it gonna go? How over the top is it gonna go? Are we gonna see a Logan that's slicing off the heads of Sentinels and fighting Mr. Sinister? Or are we gonna have a Wolverine that's like sad and he cries? I'm open to different interpretations of the character. They could do anything they want with Wolverine. It'd probably be really interesting, but I'm curious to see how they handle the gameplay aspect. Because as simple and as arcadey brawler X-Men Origins Wolverine really is, it set a good bar for Wolverine action, from the gore to just the satisfaction of pulling it all off. X-Men Origins Wolverine is funny because it's like kind of a game that was just another licensed game that ended up in the bargain bin. You'd find it with all those other used games from like the Xbox 360, PS3 era, and you know, it would be like, oh, what is this? But then you throw it in and you're like, oh my god, wow. And we're thankful for that. We're never going to forget that. We think it's still really underrated. There are some great YouTube videos out there highlighting the game, showcasing some of the combat and how cool it can get with some challenge. And we implore you to check that out. Definitely look more into this game if you've never played it. If you have played it though, we want to hear what you guys are thinking in the comments. Do you look back on it fondly? Do you think it was pretty trashy, but do you like it? Do you like X-Men? Do you like Wolverine? And really, what would you want from a new game featuring Wolverine? Insomniac's making it, so now's the time to hash out what you really would want from it. Let's talk about anything X-Men Origins Wolverine, and maybe not the movie. I mean, if you want to talk about the movie in the comments, that's fine too, but you know, maybe let's avoid that. Let's just talk anything Wolverine games. If you enjoyed this quick little trip down memory lane with us, clicking the like button's all you gotta do. It really helps us out and we would appreciate that. And if you're new, consider subscribing because we put out videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.